My name is Omotala Molaya, and you're welcome to Techpoint Ask Me Anything session. Today, our guest is Mrs. Funke Opeke. Funke Opeke is the CEO of MainOne Cable Company, a world-class telecom services and network solutions for businesses in West Africa. Hello, ma.
Good morning.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are so pleased to have you here, and we have
delighted.
lots of questions for you.
Okay, great.
Okay, so first one is, what ignited the spark in you to start MainOne?
Well, I had been back in Nigeria for a couple of years, and this was 2005 to 2007, and noticed just the absence of the internet. And I had worked professionally in telecommunications in the US and had really been a part of companies that were driving the rapid transformation and growth of what was initially called data communications, and then the explosion of the internet. And to imagine a population of almost 100 million young people and our businesses without access to this critical technology that was transforming the rest of the world was just something I couldn't live with. So that was really the drive, that we really needed to close that digital divide, that there were critical elements of infrastructure that were missing or not really functional, that were limiting our ability across West Africa to access the internet. And that was the inspiration to put MainOne into existence.
Okay, so would you say that you're achieving that goal now?
We've partly achieved that goal, and you know, in starting the company and really trying to operate and close that divide, you better understand the challenges we have in Africa in terms of development.
Yeah.
So we built the infrastructure, and that was very successful in terms of raising money, $240 million. We were a startup company. To build a submarine cable. We got all the licenses, got permits from all the countries between here and Portugal, connected Nigeria, Lagos, Ghana, and Portugal, and then onwards to the UK, and interconnected with a lot of operators on time, on budget. All that was working. We got the initial customers. However, getting the internet to the population has proven to be a much bigger challenge. And that's the real challenge we're trying to solve.
Okay.
We imagine that the retail operators, the internet service operators, that would shift the focus from voice to data, that they would do it in a manner that was holistic to ensure that people actually could enjoy the internet, and that the capacity we had in international waters will then reach people across West Africa.
Yeah.
And that's been slower than we would expect. Of course, internet penetration in Nigeria today is much higher. So we do see the impact, but the impact is not near as much as we would like or that we anticipated when we set out to build that critical piece. So, I used to say, once this cable is in, okay, then I'm going to kick back. And I've had to work harder to ensure that we can push it. And there's still a lot to be done. Right? To be honest, there's more to be done than has been achieved in bringing internet into every school, every young person who needs opportunity, every small business that the internet could transform. So we have a lot of work to do.
So would you say that you're disappointed that about 43% of people in Nigeria still don't have access to the internet?
I tend not to look back, so I don't want to say disappointed.
Okay.
I just would say there's a lot more work to be done. I mean, and that's the work of developing Africa. If we can bring the internet to those people, if we can bring a richer internet experience into our educational settings, our businesses, so they can actually do more and have better quality online, better access, lower cost. So there's just a lot more work to do. But disappointment is, I tend not to kind of look back.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that we haven't finished the work we set out to do.
That's a good approach.
Yeah.
So being in business in Nigeria is really hard.
Yes.
But being a woman in business, I'm sure, is 100 times harder. How do you deal with that?
Because I studied engineering, I was the only female in my undergraduate class. And, you know, in engineering, it tends to be more male-dominated.
Yeah.
So I'm not overly sensitive. You know, I just do what I need to get done. But, you know, our environment, I find, you know, there's just some places where the fact that you're a woman and you're asserting authority, people feel a little, to be honest, I move on. You know, I just go to the next or do what I have to do. But, you know, I can't apologize for being a woman. That's who I am. That's the only person I am. So I really just try, I notice it sometimes. I just try not to pay too much attention to it. You know, get over it. You know, I'm going to try to do it. And sometimes people will not engage because I'm a woman. Then I try to find an alternative around that. One thing I learned in doing MainOne is, other than government, which, you know, you cannot ignore, when it comes to commerce, you know, there's always an alternative.
Yeah.
So, so I just do what I have to do.
So let me take you back a little bit.
Yes.
You studied at the Obafemi Awolowo University in Ilefe.
Yeah.
Great Ife.
Great Ife, yay!
Okay, so there is this thing about female students in a male-dominated class, like engineering and Aki and all this. I noticed that a lot of women in those departments go without makeup. I mean, they're just disheveled. I'm sorry to say. But were you like that? At what point did you decide that you will be applying lipstick, wear bangles?
Okay.
Makeup?
I can't tell. But I don't think I was disheveled. I think but I'm also not the biggest one in terms of appearances. Obviously, I'm not in show business, or I've never been a model or whatever. But you know, I kind of look decent, and I think I've always had that. But you know, a lot of women, and maybe it's something about right brain, left brain, who are in the physical sciences or science, they start looking at more tangible outcomes and more so than their own physical appearance or presentation. And maybe that is why. But I do think if you're going to be taken seriously in business, you have to appear professional and well put together. And so I think it's important for anybody, male or female, to take care of their appearance. And so I think I've always, I always feel I could do better in terms of managing my appearance, but...
But you look good.
Thank you very much. That's a big compliment.
Okay, so one person wants to know, how do you get funded, or what creative strategies did you use to execute on minimal cash flow?
Okay. Minimal cash flow, a lot of discipline. A lot of discipline. And even though we were raising a lot of capital for the first few years until all the capital came in, I could not draw a salary. So it was tough. And sometimes
how did you live without a salary?
I lived on my savings, and you know, at some point, family even had to write me a check. So that's how it gets, you know. But that's about starting a business. You make those sacrifices. How do you raise capital? I say raising capital is the most difficult thing I had to do. Okay. I spoke with everybody. So, you know, I think you get in the zone where you have a passion you're really trying to fill, and you go out and source for money. I had very good mentors and advisors. Mr. Apola Adeola, who's the founder of GTB and who's the chairman of MainOne and has been since inception. I had met and was willing to help. Even he thought I was overly ambitious in terms of what I was setting out to do. But he gave his support, and you know, that added a lot of seriousness and credibility to it. But then, you know, I said anyone could call at any time and said there's someone somewhere that you should talk to about raising money. And I picked up my bag and my laptop and I went. And it was just relentless through that period, and working with the institutions when we now, initially it was friends and family and private money, and you never know if the money is going to come in, even though people make promises. So you just keep soliciting and searching for the funding you require. And then it became institutions and negotiating the terms and people drop out, institutions drop out who you thought were going to bring money, and you have to either put pressure on the other ones at the table or go find new ones to take their position so you can get all the money you need. So it's a really difficult task, and Mr. Adeola and my other board members and initial founders really helped that process as well. But it's you've just got to determine, once you start, you're not going to give up until you achieve your objectives. I mean, because if you look at the disappointments, you get discouraged, and then you don't fulfill your goal. The other thing is, as I said earlier, that was when I also learned that if it's commercial, if one door closes, there's another that might open.
Yeah.
So you just have to, have you tapped all the sources? Until you've tapped all the sources you can possibly gain access to, then you can't say you can't raise the money. So you just have to keep going.
So, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
You talked about that engineering thing. I think earlier, when you do all those profiles, I was more introverted. I think as I have matured and have had to take on different things, I am more extroverted. So I think I'm on the borderline. I wouldn't say I'm an extrovert in the traditional sense, but I have had to interact, be put into the public space, engage all kinds of people, constantly engaging. So that makes me a little bit more, but I'm not really an extrovert.
Okay, this is why I asked that question.
Yes.
Because I know you seem to me like a quiet person. So going out to raise funds, and you're talking about being very aggressive about raising funds.
Yes, sir.
So how were you able to manage that as someone that doesn't really talk a lot?
You learn. That's how I said now I seem somewhat extroverted, because if that's what you have to do, even if the fear is propelling you, you need to get that money, and if somebody has the money, then you say, hey, this is my plan. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I am fully committed to this, and it's going to make our society better, and I'm expecting you will make money. We've done the work. We're competent. We're very thorough. We have professionals working with us, and we would like you to support this initiative.
Okay. So what's the best advice you've received in business?
Oh, gosh. I don't know what the best advice is. It's probably a distillation of things that I've heard through the years. Plan for sustainability is one.
Okay.
And I think really in working with my advisors and Mr. Adeola, who's built a very successful institution. Right from the first day they were going to put money in, they said, who's your backup? When I went to them to present the initial request for funding. So you need to have someone who, if anything happens and you're indisposed, given all the effort you put into this, someone can carry that on. When you build the organization, very strong governance and processes in terms of being compliant with the laws, doing ethical business, being transparent, not cutting corners. So I think that's probably it's a distillation of lessons. It may be the harder road to take sometimes, but at the end of the day, I think it served us well. We're building an institution and a business and infrastructure that we know is sustainable and is able to deliver value. So I think that's probably what I have
in terms of business advice.
In terms of business advice. You can't just think of today. You've got to think, is this going to work in 6 months? Is it going to work in a few years? How do I keep this going rather than just a one shot?
Okay. So do you believe there is some sort of pattern or formula to becoming a successful entrepreneur?
Becoming a successful entrepreneur, first you have to have, because it's business, right? So you have to have some commercial acumen. You've got to understand, you've got to have a plan, you've got to be somewhat organized, but you've got to be hardworking and diligent. I mean, that's it. And then you've got to find something that you are passionate about and are willing to give your best. And if you have those things, you know, the skills behind you, the passion, the diligence and the commitment and the willingness to work hard, then you will navigate through. Because, you know, especially in our environment, every day is another challenge or a new surprise you have to overcome. So there's no real playbook, so to say, to that gives you, you know, that success formula. But if you're reasonably well skilled and continue to develop yourself and you're prepared to work hard, and you know, then you will eventually
be successful.
Find your path and be successful. And you may end up doing things that are somewhat different from what you set out to do initially, but you'll be able to evolve and find your success path.
Okay. So Engineer Bolex asked, how far do you think Nigerian tech entrepreneurs can go without the support of the government?
You know, I had, interesting question. I had a conversation last week that really stayed with me because I was invited to speak at the Institute of Directors lunch.
Okay.
And they were honoring Dr. Mike Omolayole, who's a relatively old and distinguished Nigerian citizen, as a fellow of the Institute of Directors. And I talked about, you know, the growth of tech businesses in China and how there was some level of protectionism and how we needed to look at things about local content and data domiciliation. And I said, you know, maybe we don't need to go the Chinese approach, but somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And after the lunch, he said to me, you were too polite on protectionism. He says, all these nascent industries will not thrive unless government protects them. He said, look at what Trump is doing, even in America today, in terms of trying to bring back protectionism to their markets, even though they export significantly to other parts of the world. But he's trying to say, we will not import. So I guess, yes, the tech industry, I mean, it really just affirmed me. And I thought, this is such a wise old man. And I tell you, it's just stayed with me since I had that conversation with him, that the voice of experience is saying, you cannot build these new industries, especially in today's global marketplace, without this new tech businesses being protected by government.
Yeah.
And I also know from my experience, even in the United States, when online commerce, e-commerce started, you didn't pay sales tax if you shopped on Amazon. So, and those were by acts of Congress. And there are things like pioneer licenses for technology. Today they're looking at removing net neutrality rules so that they can stimulate competition and bring more companies into the internet space and the service space in the US. So clearly government has a role to play.
Okay, so Mustafa Olasukombi wants to know, is MainOne looking to provide affordable bandwidth for SMEs anytime soon?
We are starting to do some work with SMEs in Lagos, but not nearly enough. You know, the challenge of gaining access to infrastructure and distributing infrastructure here, when you look at the numbers, certainly there are a lot more SMEs, not just in Lagos, but across Nigeria. And for our economy to grow, these SMEs also need access to technology.
Yeah.
The challenge is, how do you bridge the gap between Lagos, where we landed the cable, and all these SMEs across the country? If we had to deploy new infrastructure to do that, the SMEs they don't have the capacity to pay for that infrastructure, because infrastructure is really expensive to deploy here in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So we've got to find means of sharing infrastructure with other operators, being able to deploy services reliably on that infrastructure and get the reach to all these SMEs. And that has not been easy to achieve, to be honest with you. So in Lagos, where we've been able to deploy our own infrastructure and have SMEs along those routes where we've laid fiber or where we have close to where we have points of presence, we are doing that. We work with other ISPs to make our infrastructure available so that they can also reach SMEs, but there's still a lot of work to be done in the SME space.
Okay, so Tijani Akinola, the developer of the Trade techpack.com, and I'm looking forward to take it everywhere like others such as Jumia and Konga. Can you please give me some tips?
You know, I presume TradeTrack.com, I don't really know that platform,
Yeah.
but I presume it's some kind of e-commerce platform.
Yeah.
You know, e-commerce is all about the numbers. And so when you start in a market where you're not well known, because he mentioned Jumia and Konga, you've got to focus on how you get the eyeballs and how you get, and because you don't have the cash or the capital, typically to do as much marketing as the bigger players, you really have to find viral ways of getting that attention and getting that marketing going. So what I would recommend or suggest, that the only thing I could say is, you know, relentlessly get people, hopefully you have a good platform. We'll take that as basic table stakes. And then what you need to do is be relentless in getting the eyeballs as quickly and as cost effectively as you can, so that you can build up some cash flow from your business, and that would help you do more marketing, build out capacity, and continue to grow your platform. Real competitive space.
Okay, so this is from Ojao Komo. I'm sorry if I did that right. Aderemi. Aside providing connectivity, getting internet to unserved areas, and improving the experience of served areas, what domain do you think will hasten our development towards making majority of the populace self-sustaining?
Majority of the populace in Nigeria self-sustaining, education, electricity, roads and basic infrastructure, just things that make the day-to-day experience and the quality of life of Nigerians better, and their capacity. Education is such an enabler in terms of giving you the capacity to help yourself. And if people are educated, have electricity, even if they're in the village. I was talking with some people from Ondo State yesterday where there is a tech hub. So there's no reason why, if there's a strong tech community in Akure, they couldn't walk online. If the roads were good, they could come to Lagos. If they had affordable electricity, they could work 24/7, or at least 18 hours a day, which is what tech entrepreneurs tend to do to be successful, to make their businesses successful. So I think that's in terms of self-sustainability and creating jobs, we really need the infrastructure, but we also need education. Because if our population, if our youth don't have the skills to come up with the business models, deliver the services, create the products as competitively as is being done in other markets, then we're not going to become self-sustaining. And we're always going to be a dumping ground for other people's goods. So
and we don't want that.
We don't want that.
So Ariade Caleb asked, what were some of the early challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Early challenges, capital, I had mentioned. I had talked about that. Building a team, you know, it was something that hadn't been done in Nigeria. Could we successfully operate this? Getting operational stability. It's a constantly evolving thing, but something that takes a lot of time and attention and focus. You need to do it. You know, building the business, as I said, distribution. So we thought, okay, once we got the cable to these countries, the latent demand would kind of miraculously find a solution between end consumer of the internet and our pipe, and a lot of data would flow, and we have not been able to take it for granted.
Okay, so everyone wants to know, how is MainOne service supporting digital literacy in suburban and littoral communities, and rural communities in Nigeria?
Well, when you talk about digital literacy, first is just access, right? And so I think we're a big enabler of access, not just to ourselves, but to other internet service providers, to academic institutions, to tech hubs, where we are working to ensure that high quality and reliable services are available so that people could do work. As I mentioned, the infrastructure challenges across the country are more than us. I mean, we've been active proponents of some of the policies put in place, the national broadband policy, to ensure that more people actually do have that access and are digitally literate. We would like to see, just like I think most Nigerians, better implementation.
Yeah.
Because implementation of some of those policies will ensure we actually achieve those objectives.
And like you said, education is a big thing.
It is,
something to
it
be
is.
taken seriously.
It is.
Okay, so final question.
Sure.
For all intents and purposes, you have managed to build a telecoms empire in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's one of the hardest things to do? Do you ever fear that you could lose it all someday?
I don't fear, I mean, it's not me. I mean, the company's not owned by me, but by a bunch of investors, of which I am a small part. Could we lose it on someday? No. Because we've built the right kind of structures and governance. So it's not about me losing it, but the company can't just go poof. While I think I hope I'm still a critical part of the company,
Yeah.
there are structures, there are capable managers. I don't have to be physically present for work to be done. I'm really proud of the team that we built in MainOne. So I'm not worried that MainOne would go poof. We have sustainable infrastructure, processes, services, customers, all those things going. So that I'm not worried about. Empire, I don't know about building an empire. We built a business that is critical to the growth of our economy,
Yeah.
to economic development in West Africa, and we hope we will have the opportunity to continue. I think it's still early days, because when we look at the results, as I mentioned earlier, it's still not good enough. Every school needs to be connected. Every local government needs to have access. Every small business should know that they have the capacity to go online and offer their services, both within the country and globally. The way we do things has to be enhanced by digital transformation, and then maybe we would have built an empire.
It's been such an interesting time with you. Yeah, but we want to give a last word for everybody watching.
I think what I'd like to say for people who have an entrepreneurial dream is that our environment is tough, but that's why the opportunities exist, right? In terms of global indices for economic development or GDP per capita, you look at Nigeria, and we're way down there. But the flip side of that is that the opportunities exist. Would I have had the opportunity to create a startup company to build infrastructure like this in an advanced market? Probably not, because there are large companies already established who do that. And so we have a large population, the largest in sub-Saharan Africa. We have access to these large markets. We have big challenges and thereby opportunities, and our entrepreneurs have to dream big dreams and go out there. If it were easy, all the opportunities, all these things would already have been done, and the opportunities wouldn't exist. So the fact that they have not been achieved and we still have those needs in our society represent an opportunity for someone to figure out how to make it happen. And I certainly hope that many more young Nigerians are putting themselves in a position where they're acquiring the critical skills to be able to do that.
There you have it. We hope you enjoyed this session with Ms. Funke Opeke. Do join us next month as we bring you another industry giant doing big things. Bye.
Thank you.